everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Art of Comic Writing. I am your host, Jorge Medina. That's George with a J. And before we get to it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask you to subscribe, like, and share the video. Share it out. Share it out to anyone who has ever attempted to write a comic, a book, poetry. We're going to be talking about writing, and I'm going to be talking to a lot of different independent artists, creators, and things of that sort. And hopefully you'll be able to learn something. I've learned a lot in the last few episodes that I've already made and speaking to different people. So that's been a lot of fun. So don't forget to share it, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of these shows. All right. Now, what if I told you the struggle is real sometimes? You'll be like, what are you talking about? The struggle is real. The struggle is real. And when I talk about the struggle, I'm talking about writing. Have you ever sat down to write and you feel like you're killing it, right? You're knocking it out the park. The words are flowing. But then the imposter syndrome kicks in. Or you sit down to write and nothing comes out. Between the writer's block and the imposter syndrome, this writing thing isn't easy. It gets tough. So what is it? What's the most difficult part of the writing process? I told you mine. What's yours? We are going to have that conversation with my next guest. And his take on this topic is going to be an interesting one. Let's see what he says. Plus, we're going to be giving him a writing prompt like I like to do on the show. So get ready. And here we go. Okay, now, without further ado, please help me welcome a gentleman I met at my local comic book shop here in Yonkers. Unfortunately, the store closed, but I stayed in touch with him and then found out that he was a writer. And not just a guy who dabbled. He is a very talented writer. How do I know? I picked up his book, Oh Shit, They're Killing People, and found out. And you should too. I will put a link in the show notes below. So please welcome Mr. Patrick Hayes. What up, my friend?
It's going good. It's going good.
Going good. That's good to hear. Good to hear, man. Hey, listen, the book was fabulous. I have a copy downstairs, and for anyone who wants a copy, like I said, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. The link will also be scrolling there at the bottom, like so. So if you want to check it out, allmylinks.com/PHF. But Patrick, man, how you been? How you been? How are things?
I've been very good. I'm working a lot, and trying to get writing acclimated into that new schedule that I have now. But it's been good. It's been very good.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. And so for those who are watching, if you've been watching this show every week, you know that I bring in a guest and I ask them questions about writing. We talk about writing and what they've done well, what they've, struggled with, and hopefully that helps the writer out there figure out their work. So we're going to get to it. Patrick, if you're ready, let me know. We're going to start with question number one. If someone with the power to make you a better writer said to you, I will make you a better writer, but you have to give up one thing. What is that one thing that you'd give up?
I would give up the ability to write by hand if I could write by computer.
Interesting. Wait, so tell me, so explain that to me a little bit.
I don't have very good handwriting, and whenever I do it, it's in a journal or something like that. And it's very straining. It feels good. The words feel different. Something about it feels, I feel say more powerful, but I get no writing done like that. I try to buy notepads and carry around notepads. I get no writing done like that. But if I can never do that again, like I can never write physically, I know that would be a little difficult.
It's funny because I always carry a pad, and it's for me it's easier because so the way it is for me, I think faster than I can type. So if I have an idea, I can just, and again, like you said, I don't have very good handwriting, but I can read my own handwriting, in other words. So I'm able to write down whatever I need to write down. But then there's that thing of now I got to transfer that into a computer, type it all out all over again. And now is it more of am I wasting time or whatever? But I just feel very comfortable writing by hand first. So that to me, for you, what you're saying right there, would be very hard for me to give up because that's how I first drop things down is on a piece of paper. Next question. Here we go. You ready, Patrick?
Is there?
Who or what influences your writing? And if who, what is it about their writing that influences it? And if what, then why? So let's start with the who. Is there anyone that influences your writing?
Uh, I have I have five. There's a bunch more, but there are like five main writers who I acknowledge as my masters, as the writers who I look to and gain almost all my writing ability from, like the style, all that. First and foremost is Robert E. Howard, uh, uh,
Mhm.
the creator of Conan the Barbarian. All those,
Right.
I love short stories, and I love to be a master of the short story, and he is a master of the short story. And it's only him and H.P. Lovecraft really have are the only two writers in the genre of purple prose, where
Mhm.
it's I could say the moon is shining brightly, but if you call it a magnificent disc of silver that bleeds the sky with a white that only then you're being very purple prosy. And Conan is very like that. I feel like Conan as a character image wise always gets the barbarian kind of like imagery, and that's understandable. But when you read Conan, it reads very much like that. It reads very much like poetry, like prose poetry. Um,
Right.
Harlan Ellison, Harlan Ellison, absolutely. Um, uh, uh, the way his like psychological and like social approach to sci-fi, the guy's masterful, and his attitude towards being a writer and not letting too many things get in the way. Leigh Brackett,
Mhm.
who this woman wrote space opera, and she her like mood and romance, the mood and romance she added to space operas was amazing. And she another master of the short story, and she more popularly known for writing the first draft of Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
And everything that movie about Han and Leia, definitely Leigh Brackett, 100% Leigh Brackett. Those cute scenes in the hallway, that was her type of writing. And staying on the topic of Star Wars, James Lucino, who wrote a bunch of novels, the Darth Plagueis novels, and uh, all those stories, man. His pacing and storytelling and just imagery is absolutely amazing. And I said five, right? Roy Thomas,
Mhm.
who took over for Stanley after Stanley was done writing. He became editor.
Right.
Then Roy Thomas was the next guy,
Mhm.
and Roy Thomas was responsible for like the Conan stuff, the Red Sonja, the a lot of that space '80s space stuff. Almost everything we're seeing now in the MCU is Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas is the reason it
Yeah.
exists, and he got the people, and he was when he became editor. He as well. He also kept this Shakespearean like tone that Stanley started in Marvel Comics, and that always spoke to me. Always spoke to me. That's the who. In terms of the
Yeah.
what, uh, the desire to tell stories. Really, I've always wanted to do it. I've always just liked doing it, and putting on like performances and stuff like that. I've always just want stories being told, and I
Yeah.
remember first doing it and first loving it and first writing it, and the first stories that made me want to be a storyteller. Funny enough, Gears of War. Gears of War was the first time
Mm.
I played a story, and I was like, I got to write something down. This is ridiculous, and it was very
Right.
much evocative of that kind of like big dude gun story. But
I love when stuff like that happens, right? When you're reading something or you're playing something and it immediately inspires you to write. Like that's magic, bro. That is
that
magic, man.
I definitely owe that to I owe that to an elementary school teacher for sure. I owe that to
Interesting.
Mrs. Tiffany Soares.
Right.
Uh, I was very fortunate enough to be in a school where I was taught Shakespeare, all the essentials, Hamlet, Macbeth, all them
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
like third,
Hmm.
fourth, and fifth grade, and reading this dark tragedy stuff then. But she didn't talk down to it. I was the first adult that didn't talk down like we were idiots. We were
That's
good enough to
awesome.
get it at fourth grade, which I was later told by a teacher in high school that there's no possible way I read Hamlet in fourth grade. I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
Teachers are so important in our lives, whether they were good or they were bad. Somehow they influence you as a person, as a creative writer, for example. If it's an English teacher, if it's a creative writing teacher, they also can deter you from writing sometimes if they're a little too harsh on you, maybe whatever. So the importance of a teacher is insane. Now, what is it about writing that you would say you find the easiest? What comes easy to you when you're writing and you're writing, whether it's prose, whether it's a script or whatever? What is it that comes the easiest to you?
Uh, yeah, I think what we were just talking about. I think the easiest thing is to generate stories.
Mm.
Uh, and I that might have come from a skill of working in a comic book store. Because one of the things that happens in a comic book store, what you see in every comic book store movie where it's featured, where people start arguing about the stories we already know, or start talking about the stories we already know, a movie, a comic book, something like that, and that banter, and within that banter naturally comes, well, what I would have done was, and then you start like you start like building this like what you would have done. And there are plenty of times where I spoke to just random people and we talk about just stories, and everyone has always had one where I'm like, that is genius. Like, what random people could come in, and sometimes the conversation will be like 6 or 7 people, and someone will just say something, and I'm like, exactly that, exactly. And it might have been that practice, but
Yeah.
I know that's supposed to be the professional's way of thinking, is that if you can hold on to an idea, sure, but if you can't generate more of those, then you can't really write professionally. You can write for yourself and you can self-publish, that's cool, but to write professionally for like a movie studio, or for to be that Walgreens bookshelf person, you kind of have to come up with stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I find it pretty easy to generate a story. I could take a lot of materials and just generate a story. If you
Right.
need help with that, just play D&D. Play D&D, and that'll just come with that.
It's amazing how much D&D has influenced a generation and generations of writers, because
Yeah.
it's almost like a creative, it's almost like a creative tool, or it's almost like a creative exercise in writing. Is what it really is. It really is, like, because you're creating stories, you're playing. And when we were kids, if you remember being a kid playing with your action figures or playing with your friends, you are literally creating situations and circumstances that play out in this game you're playing. And that's almost what I look at writing as, is you just playing with a bunch of toys,
Mm.
and creating worlds that they live in. And that's why it's fun. That's why it's fun. And that's the fun part of it. That's the fun part of it. We're going to talk a little bit about the other side of writing, which I think people may struggle with. But before we get to that,
If you're an indie creator looking for a home for your comic book, graphic novel, short story collection, or novel, then you've come to the right place. Any One World is a full-service publisher and distributor which can take your creator-owned project and showcase it to the world. We offer 2 primary distribution channels: digital distribution, where we'll sell your book in our digital bookstore; digital and print distribution, where we'll sell your book in our digital bookstore and distribute through physical bookstores across the UK, USA, and Canada. In addition to distribution, Any One World can also work with you to publish your book. We'll publish your book digitally, helping you source artists, edit, format, and publish your book in digital format. Digital and print. We'll publish your book digitally and produce and distribute print copies of your work. Digital, print, and merch. We'll publish digital and print copies of your book and then work with you to design or distribute products and add-ons such as t-shirts, posters, and more. On top of all of this, we can offer additional paid services where required, specifically cover design, editing, and formatting. Unlike many traditional publishers, Any One World gives indie creators maximum control and flexibility over publishing and distribution. So if you're looking to partner with us to distribute existing books or publish something new, read carefully through the information below and fill out a submission form.
and we are back. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. We are going to be talking about the other side, right? We talked about the easy side and what's easy, what comes easy to us. What would you say is the hardest part of writing for you? My response to that was basically the imposter syndrome, right? I spoke to you a little bit about that. It's just, having writing something down, thinking you did a great job, rereading it, not understanding, hey, it's my first draft, but rereading it and saying, damn, what the heck did I just write? And then saying, oh, this is crap. You know what I mean? That is hard, and also obviously the writer's block that we all come. But to you, what is, I would say, the most difficult part of writing, and then the writing process? Well, maybe there's 2 answers to that.
Gotcha. Definitely the hardest part for me, at least, is breaking that first wall down and like breaching this story to a point where like I confidently know the path I'm on. Because there's that, like, I don't care for outlining too much. Not that it's difficult, but I find it boring. I find it boring.
Yeah.
Where I know I can change it whenever I want. That's the magic of an outline, is that it's just there. You have a framework. You have a framework. It's cool, and you can go off of that. But it takes me out of it, though. It takes me out of it a little bit when I breach that first wall and get the story going. There's a point where I get fed up with making decisions for the characters. I get fed up with, like, just following that and just, like, going by it. It's an incredible way to write. It is. But I mostly write for myself. I'd like to write professionally. I'd like to get to a point where I'm in a Warner Brothers studio in a writing room, or on a writing room on a show. Like that'd be great. That'd be cool. But
Right.
I do it for my soul's purpose. So I want to have fun while it's happening. And harking back on the previous question, or my answer to that question, where I said D&D, Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games using dice in any way taught me the randomization of things happening. There are times where I'm playing a D&D game and I want to do something. And this something is a 17. That is the number I have to beat. I have a 10, and then I have a little item that gives me +4. So I have a possible 4. I roll something and I get it. I miss, and it's like, damn. And so now the dungeon master has to turn the whole thing. They have to come up with a story that now goes with my decision being wrong. And there's an alternate path where I could have had my decision being right. And so when it comes to characters, things happening, is this dude going to kill his wife? I'll just roll a dice and flip a coin. And to me, that makes it fun. Because now I'm like, oh, I didn't know he was going to kill his wife. That's crazy. And then I write it down.
Yeah.
I more so want to be a scribe than I want to be a writer. I want to have the stories come to me random, and then I'm just writing down what happens. Because then that makes it so fun. That makes it so fun for me. I do that especially with who's going to be the main character of a story, because I'm a firm believer that, and this is the best way to diversify who's in stories, since there's a big call for a lot of people being considered in the fiction, because there's not a lot of stories for a lot of people, especially here in America, where the stories center on certain people sometimes. So to have that consideration, you have to think that adventure could happen to anybody. Adventure could happen to literally anyone. Something can happen and then boom. So I like to put a various people, races, types, alien, everything, and just roll a dice and see who's going to get a story. And that way I ensure that the villains, the heroes, they're all random people. Anything could have happened to make these people. And I've gotten some cool villains, some cool heroes out of it.
Right. So when you say breaking the first wall, Patrick, like, how do you break it? How do you, is it through that process? It's just rolling the dice and seeing what happens? How do you get, and what is that first wall? What is that first wall that you hit? Whenever you're writing, what do you find it to be? Like, what is that first wall that you gotta blast through, and how do you blast through?
So that first wall is that first arc of the hero's journey, is getting the character out of their comfort zone, getting them to go out there. And how I do that is, it just happens randomly based on my mood, my taste. If it's October, someone's dying. It just that's it. But even if on my mind was just Lord of the Rings type adventure fantasy, because it's October, I have to do that because I'm just feeling that. But it's that first wall there is why does this person want to do this, and is it worth it? There are a lot of times where please tell me if it's happened to you, but a lot of times where I've gotten a character past that wall, like I gave them a reason to have a story, and I was like, that doesn't even seem good enough to me, and I just did abandon that. It didn't seem like a journey worth having.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah. No,
it's
I think yeah, no, I think it does. It does happen. And it's funny because you mentioned um, that outlines are boring, and I agree, and they are, and they're tedious, right? And it kind of like, and if you're everybody's got we're all different when it comes to writing, when it comes to anything. So when you work best the way you work best, sometimes outlines can hinder or can impede that creative process for you, right? I love outlining. Like I do. I have fun doing that. But you're right. Even in the outlining process, sometimes there are decisions that or choices that my character makes that you're right, you deem boring, or it is those decisions that that you end up writing yourself right into a wall because that decision was just like it was just a weak decision. It was, which is why I think that a lot of real life stories, whenever they say, based on a true story, they change a lot of the stories sometimes because reality sometimes it's boring, and so they have to spice it up or change certain things to make it more exciting or to make it something that's going to be more interesting to watch or to enjoy because sometimes those things are interesting to us because we're going through it, or they affect us in a way because we're going through it. But the people reading our story may not be in that same place, or may say that doesn't. I don't know why did he react that way. You know what I'm saying, or whatever it is. So yeah, 100%, 100%. I think no matter which way you go, there are times when you will say, yeah, that decision, nah, I'm gonna go with another one because that one was boring, or that one just doesn't move the needle for me.
100%. I think for me, when I give myself a good amount of option and I roll one of these dice, I
Mm-hmm.
think it gives me a little better chance of having empathy between the characters and the reader. Uh, just because we all know how random life can be. So when something does come out of nowhere random, you're like, why is this happening? It's up to you to make sure that randomness pays off into a good story. But when it's absolutely out of nowhere, and or this character makes a decision out of nowhere, now you got to explain why this character decided to cross this river, even though they specifically were told by everyone in their village to never cross this river, and he had no desire to cross the river at all. He didn't even want to go, but then all of a sudden decides why. Now, why did he do that? Because now to me that's
Right.
interesting. Because if I set myself up where this person never wants to cross the river and never ever will, then the first thing I'm going to think to do is to create a threat on the other side of the river. And now
Right.
there's this thing waiting in the woods, and no
Right.
one
Right.
knows. No one knows why it's scary. They never seen it. They just heard it. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's like, okay, how do they react? Or these things come over the river and attack the village. But then I roll the dice, and this guy decides to cross the river. So now I got to write a whole different story. And to me, that just makes it so interesting.
Right. Right. That is. Yeah. I mean, and that's where you got to get creative because you got to make it make sense. And, and the creative process. This is what I love about the creative process is it's a process, and I think as long as you know what you're doing, I think you're okay. You're all right. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
When I say know what you're doing, I mean, those. I don't want people hate the word rules, but the things that we use to write stories, or the things that work when writing stories, right? Whether you're using similar to the hero's journey or not, as long as you know that your character has to go through some kind of change. For me, I think a character has to go through some kind of change in order for that story to be interesting. I think if the character starts this way, if the character starts on one side of the bridge from that river, at the end of the story, he either has to be on the other side, or if he's still on the same side, we have to know why he never made that cross. What
Exactly.
happened? What was it? What was it that made him choose not to go over there? Like something's got to happen, because if it doesn't, then you don't have a story. I think you just don't have a story. Or
Exactly.
it's a boring story.
It's a boring story. And if you ever do a character that doesn't change, or you want to try the challenge of doing
Hmm.
so, then you got to make sure that the background characters, the supporting characters, the evil across the river, all those things reflect onto the main character in an interesting way. and almost make me agree, like, yeah, don't go over that river at all. Why would you even do that? And you'd have to give that a good reason. If a number of people over the village started going missing, and there was just no way to beat this thing, then there's a good reason why this person couldn't cross the river. But your storytelling has to really serve that, because there are boring stories that have been good because they were just told all right. You can make something boring good if you want the characters to not change. I think it's an interesting thing to do, to try, is that, even if the character sucks, this character's not learned their lesson at all and they suck, but you have to reflect the world showing them that they suck. And it's
I think that that's what it is, and again, I think that it goes back to characters. A story can be, you can struggle with a story. A story could sound like that would be a really boring story, but then all of a sudden you inject these characters that are so interesting that two people having a conversation becomes an interesting character. And again, going back to Quentin Tarantino, it makes sense why he would say why he would give that advice, because there are characters even within Pulp Fiction. That movie is all out of order. There's no order in that movie, but yet you still sit there watching it and you want to know what happens next because the characters are so interesting. Every character you meet in that movie is an interesting character. Conversations that they're having are conversations that you and I would have, right? Like,
yeah,
things like that that make them that interesting. When you meet the wolf, oh my God, who is this guy? What is his story? And every single character you meet within that story is so interesting that you don't even care about how out of order the story is. It's about these characters now, and you're just paying
exactly.
attention to those characters as we move along. Now, how that plays out in prose might be very different. You know what I mean? But again, I think a character can even say that. I mean, it would be like a cool challenge to see if something like that can be done. Maybe it already has, and I'm not aware of it.
It must have been. I read a lot of choose your own adventure books, and
Hmm.
they're completely out of order, and that's specifically their style. But you always end up finding out who your character is, because a lot of time either a character that the game gives you, or you're your
Hmm.
character, and decisions
Yeah,
you make based on it's the same process of building a character and building an
yeah,
interesting enough
yeah,
one, which you pull from so many things. It's just the weird riskiness of, again, from pulling only from yourself,
yeah,
and it's you
yeah.
walking around some world, and you're like, oh, that's cool, but you have to be interesting now. You can't just be some person.
Right, absolutely, man, absolutely. That's listen. I could talk about this all night, Patrick, and I always wondered, hey, I wonder how long this one's going to go for. But no, that's amazing, man. That's great. I mean, I think that people can learn from a lot of what we're talking about. I think if you've been in a situation of writing and you've sat in a situation, I think some of the stuff that we talked about, try it. For those watching, try it. See what happens. Roll the dice. If you're the type of person who sits down and tries to, you get stuck a lot, roll that dice, see what happens. I think that would make it easier for you to be able to tell that story.
100%. That character generators, or just whatever
Mm,
you need, and the word generator in Google. That's it, and just randomize it, because I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect to where, if the information doesn't come from you, then it wasn't exactly yours. But
mm,
nothing, which of course, but nothing matters up to the point until it's written. How you got there, that's cool. But as long as you're doing the actual writing at the end, and you turn this information into a story, how you got the information, where you got it from, whether it was random or not, that doesn't matter until, once you write a good story after that. And,
absolutely,
the outlining,
absolutely.
the this it's easy. It's easy to just I feel if you're a writer, if you actively want to write, I think it's easy to take something randomized and weave that into your story, because we do it all day. Again, that's why you carry the notepad, because something's
Hmm.
happening, and oh,
Hmm.
what, like and you write it down right away, and you
True,
know how it's going to be weaved in at some point randomly. Sometimes I'll write something down,
true.
and I know it's going to be weaved in somewhere. I usually know where it's going to be weaved in. I just know it's super weavable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. All right, Patrick. Well, listen, I have one final question for you before I let you go. And it's a bonus question. The bonus question is, what's your favorite YouTube channel and why is it Get Your Meds?
Oh, it's crazy that you guessed my favorite YouTube channel. Isn't that weird? That is, you must be ESPN or something.
Yeah.
My God. Well, honestly, I love your channel because it's conversational. It's conversational and it's talking about writing specifically, and in all forms. Every episode I've seen, it's a different type of person writing something. And I like that a lot because I like writing all types. I like trying to write all types. So seeing different people coming from like the novel, the comic, the any kind of screenwriting, any kind of writing they do, all those forms are, I think, should be practiced in every way. I write prose and novels, and I feel like learning screenwriting has helped break down some stories. So to hear people and like people like local like people who are in the bottom creating and they're coming up and that's where I live. I live in the indie world.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. I am gonna leave you with a little homework though, because at the end of the show, I like to give the guests and even people watching a writing prompt. All right, and I know that we talked a little bit about sci-fi. We talked about those kind of things. So your writing prompt this week is going to be strangers on a train in space. Okay, so it's not just strangers on a train, but a train in space. If there were trains in space, strangers on a train in space. That's going to be the prompt for this week. But Patrick, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. You've been amazing. This has been very, very informative. I've learned a lot, and I hope the people watching have learned. And I can't wait to read your next stuff that you're coming up with. Again, the website is right there, allmylinks.com/phf. Check it out there. You can check out his book. I'll also have it in the show notes. And yeah, my brother, listen, we'll be in contact, man. I'm sure I will see you around, and we'll definitely be chatting online, and we'll have to do this again.
So absolutely. I enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And that, my friends, was Patrick Hayes. Thank you so much, Patrick, for coming on. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you all who are watching, who have already subscribed to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. And what's the hardest part of writing for you? What is it? What is it? Is it the imposter syndrome? Is it the writer's block? Is it that you hate doing outlines? Is that you need to do outlines? What is it? What is the hardest thing for you to do when it comes to writing? And don't stop writing. Just figure out what it is and try to fix it. Hopefully, this helped you out a little bit, this show here. So thank you very much again to Patrick for coming on. Don't forget, he has a book right now called "Oh Shit, They're Killing People." Yes, that's the name of the title. "Oh Shit, They're Killing People." And the show notes will have where you can find the book. If you watch the show, you saw the scroll down below. I will post it here again. It is allmylinks.com/phf. You can pick up a copy of his book right now. Check that out. And thank you guys again for joining me. If you want to get down with the writing prompt, don't forget the writing prompt is strangers on a train in space. There are strangers on a train in space. What's going on? What's happening? Why are they there? How did they get there? Why is there a train in space? Talk to me. Let me know. If you are interested in having me put that up on my website, then email it to me. My email will be in the show notes as well. Thank you again for coming on. Don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And I will be back next week with another guest. So stay tuned for that. And like I tell you every week, keep writing. Peace.